Welcome to the Pat Imig Sports Network, broadcasting from Imig AI Studios in St. Louis, Missouri. Now, your host, Pat Imig.
Welcome into the show, ladies and gentlemen. It's football. I'm Pat Imig. It's the Pat Imig Sports Network, and we're heading into week 16 after another exciting weekend of NFL action. Joining us for the NFL, as always, the pro football guru, Russell Baxter. You can follow him on X at BaxFootballGuru, as well as on SI covering the Seattle Seahawks, Carolina Panthers, San Diego Chargers, and Buffalo Bills. And combined, we have a 70 years experience covering the NFL, assuming that we count my first 10 years as a child. But Russell, it's good to have you with us. How's it going?
It's going good. It was a very fascinating week last week, and I don't know how the NFL keeps on doing it. They outdid themselves with the scheduling this weekend, and we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
We have obviously a Thursday game. We have two Friday games, Sunday games, and a Monday night game.
Two Saturday games.
Yeah, I'm sorry. What did I say?
You said Friday.
I'm sorry.
You're probably thinking of Black Friday because it's the Eagles that are playing again on that in-between day, just like they did on Black Friday.
Yeah, well, hopefully they'll fare better on this time around on a non-Sunday game. That Black Friday game, people were burying them after the Bears ran for 281 yards on them. So,
yeah, and when I think of it, they also lost that Thursday game to the Giants, and they also lost the Monday game to the Chargers. I think they've played another Monday night game, but so 3 non-Sunday games they've lost this year for whatever that's worth. We just threw that one up. We just made that one up on the spot.
There's a conspiracy that the league, to prevent them from repeating as Super Bowl champions, is scheduling Super Bowl 60 for a Tuesday.
Is that right?
No.
I wouldn't be shocked by this point. I mean, by anything. So let's just get into it because we've got the marquee matchup of all marquee matchups for a Thursday game this coming week with the Seahawks hosting the Rams. And I don't know, did you happen to watch both teams in action on Sunday?
I did. I know many people were not watching the Seahawks. They were watching Phillip Rivers.
Right.
But I was watching the Seahawks. It is so odd on how they are just kind of a so-so team at home. It's almost like they thrive on the road now. And this has been going on since Mike McDonald took over as head coach last year. They're not bad at home. They're just they don't really have necessarily the knockout punch at home, or, for lack of a better word, almost a ferocity, which is what you see them play with. You saw it in the second half against Atlanta. They blew out the Saints early in the year. They were blowing out the Cardinals at home, and then Sam Darnold started giving the ball away, and Arizona started creeping back into it. But they lost to the Niners at home. They lost to the Bucks at home.
And even in that Cardinals game, even before the gap got closed, I guess, by the turnovers, 2 of the touchdowns were defensive. And that's not to take away from the defensive effort, but I guess what I'm just saying is, to support your point, there's something about, at least with the offense especially, where at home, for whatever reason, it's just not working as well. So I still...
I'll also say this, regardless of where they played, and I'm working on something right now. I want to say the last 5 or 6 games, Pat, I think they have more field goals than they have touchdowns.
I think that's right.
And I know that's easy to say after 6 field goals, but you go back and look, the Atlanta game, they kicked field goals. They got a kickoff return from Rashid Shaheed, and they finally got, I think, 3 Darnold touchdown passes. But their offense is not quite clicking yet. There's been some spectacular, and it's really Jackson Smith Najigba, and
Very nicely done
someone else.
on the pronunciation.
I do my best.
Yeah.
So.
I do. Well, so what I was going to say is I feel like Shaheed is starting to get more involved.
He is.
In the passing game too, and
Yes.
even in the scat back run game, if you want to call it that, the occasional run. I thought that as much as the broadcast obviously was centered around Phillip Rivers, the Colts are still obviously they're still fighting, and I actually felt like with Seattle, that was a gutsy win. Wasn't pretty. And Darnold did have to lead the team down the field on a couple of crucial drives in the fourth quarter.
Yes.
Didn't cough it up, put him in position to kick field goals. And, I almost look at that as an encouraging sign. I know that on paper, it's probably like, well, there's no reason they were 13.5-point favorites. They should have dominated, but it doesn't always go that way. So right. I thought that was encouraging if you're a Seattle fan. Because if Darnold can just do that, and if he just plays a full game without turning it over, Seattle's really, really tough to beat. I mean, look what happened in that last game against the Rams. I think
they're still second in the league in turnovers behind Minnesota. And I think they've already turned over the ball almost as much or maybe more than they did all of last season, which was McDonald's first year and so on. But I agree with you. But I'll also throw this in. Games like that are not the worst thing in the world, because when you look at good teams, they can win the shootouts and they can win the street fights.
Right.
And that was a street fight. That game was a very physical game there. I mean, the Colts were really hitting. Both teams were really hitting. And the fact that when you can win a game and not score a touchdown, you got to put the feather, because sometimes those are the kind of games that you wind up playing in the playoffs.
Exactly. Especially with the conditions the way they were as well.
Right.
So as they get ready to welcome the Rams in, what right now stands out to you about the Rams? I felt like that game, the first half with the Lions, was spectacular to watch if you like points. Second half, obviously the Lions' defense or inability to stop on defense was the key. But do you feel like the Rams' offense can do better this go around versus Seattle than they did last go around? Because if you remember, I think Stafford only had like 150 yards passing, and they still almost lost the game even with Darnold's 4 turnovers.
Yeah, they got outgained badly by the Seahawks. And like you said, Jason Myers had a 61-yard field goal attempt at the end of the game and didn't make it. But yeah, you take away the turnovers and who knows what would happen. But Seattle's defense kind of kept them in check. And my concern with the Rams all along has been their run defense, which can sometimes lead to problems in the secondary. And they're a little short on cornerback. There's no doubt about that. So it wasn't as if Seattle it wasn't if Seattle had problems moving the ball against them in the first meeting. Unfortunately, Sam moved it to the other team 4 times.
Sure.
So, but all said and done, they had a chance. Seattle had a chance to win that game. And it's really interesting. These teams wound up with the same win-loss record last year. Pat, they have the same win-loss record this year. Seattle beat them at the end of the year, but Matthew Stafford set out, and I want to say it's set since Matthew Stafford became a member of the Rams. The Seahawks have not beaten the Rams when Stafford is the starting quarterback.
There you go, folks. That's a very telling stat.
Yeah.
Will prophecy come true? Will it be the prophecy that comes true on Sunday or on Thursday? We shall see.
Okay, see, you and I are both not good with our day. We're so anxious for the game to get here.
Right. Well, also, it's starting to be Christmas mode and holiday mode, and it's where like every day it just becomes. It's like you wake up and you're wondering what day it is. So
in other words, eggnog.
Not yet, but it's like getting to that point where it's like, is it okay if I put Bailey's in my coffee when I just wake up? So 'tis the season. So amongst all of the Thursday game, there's also, there's the Saturday games. The Bears and the Packers are playing. Um, right now, I would say that the Bears have the obvious advantage just because they seem healthier, a little younger, and with the obvious injury to Micah Parsons. And then also Green Bay, I don't know the status right now, but they lost Watson in that game against Denver, who was really starting to gel with Jordan Love. And it seems like every time he gets going with his receivers, somebody gets hurt. So I favor the Bears on this one. But what stands out to you for this matchup? I feel like there's going to be a lot of hard hitting.
Yeah, obviously the Parsons injury is huge. I can't ignore the fact that Green Bay has owned this series for basically 3 decades plus, regardless who the quarterback has been. And of course, the quarterbacks have been Brett Favre, Aaron Rodgers, and Jordan Love. And the Christian Watson thing is significant because if I remember right, 2 weeks ago, he had a very good game against the Bears. So the Bears defense is a takeaway defense. They rely on the takeaways. They're not necessarily stopping people. And I think that's why Ben Johnson has emphasized the run a little more, is to keep that other offense off the field. Here's what we know about the Packers. They're not going to be in a tiebreaker with anyone with that tie that they have against Dallas. We won't be figuring that out. But this is a tough call because as good as Caleb Williams has been in spurts, I'll say spurts or halves, we really haven't seen him like with one of those 20 out of 25 or 22 out of 25 games. He gets questioned for his inaccuracy. He can be very ordinary and spectacular at the same time.
I mean, even one of his touchdown throws, maybe it was his only one against Cleveland. I mean, it looked like he had no business throwing the ball.
Right.
And I, even with the touchdown, it's like, well, if you do that 5 times, in my opinion, 4 out of 5 times it's incomplete, and 2 out of those 4 it's going to be intercepted. So, he got, in my opinion, that's getting away with one. But I see what you mean. I mean, he still hasn't had that welcome to the NFL moment, I guess, as far as a full game goes.
And he's only in his second year, and that might not come this year, and might not come until early next year. This is the Bears are like the Patriots, last place, 5-12, maybe on the verge of winning the division. The last time they won the division title was 2018, which was the year they swung the Khalil Mack trade. And got him from the Raiders, and that defense was, pretty dominant. They wound up losing the playoffs. I think that was the Doink game to the Eagles at Soldier Field.
Yes, I think that's correct.
Trubisky took them right down the field, and they wound up doinking a field goal and losing. So, it's to me, it's such a great weekend for the NFC because we haven't gotten to the third one yet, in which we have a first place team playing a second place team. We have that with Seattle and the Rams. We have this with Green Bay and Chicago. And even though both are trying like hell not to win the division, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah, and the Panthers were in command, I feel like, against the Saints for a while there. And then the Saints pull out the victory at the end. And I believe, dovetailing off of our conversation last week, that's probably 3 division wins now for the Saints. And for a team that's not, quote unquote, that great based relative to the rest of the league, that's still got to be encouraging for the future. So that being said, go ahead.
Yeah, they have three division wins, and they have 1 win against the rest of the NFL.
Right.
So, I mean, think of it this way. Carolina's trying to make a move in this division. They haven't won it in 10 years. They haven't been to the playoffs in 8 years. And the Saints have won 4 games and swept them.
It's the NFL. It's football.
Yes, yes, it
So,
is.
so if it's the good Panthers that show up on for a full game against Tampa Bay, I feel like that offense is built to run through the Tampa Bay defense. To me, that defense has been their biggest problem all season. And you could, point to injuries that have been a part of that too, I think. But to see Tampa Bay lose to Atlanta on that Thursday night game when they finally had their cast of characters on offense, that was disappointing if you're a Tampa Bay fan. So, do you favor the physical two-headed run monster of Carolina, depending on which guy's going, or do you favor Tampa Bay with not just being healthier on offense, but also, I guess, having the experience edge too?
Well, my antenna got raised about the Buccaneers, who, I have a lot of respect for what they've done. 4 straight division titles, 5 straight playoff appearance. They have the longest playoff run in the NFC. It's not Philadelphia, it's actually Tampa Bay. But go back to the New England game, which they lost at home. You and I have used the word chunk plays all year.
Mm-hmm.
That was a big problem for them when they lost to Buffalo. Chunk plays. And they couldn't, they're up 14 and couldn't stop Kirk Cousins late in the game. And Kirk Cousins looked like the Kirk Cousins that beat them twice last year. And I think he had a 5 touchdown or a 500-yard passing game against them. So
Yeah.
they have really gone belly up. They're what are they, 1-5 in their last 6 games? Barely beat the Cardinals at home. So the defensive issues, but I'm going to use the most logical stat of all when it comes to this game.
Okay.
And it's also why Carolina will sweep the Panthers and win the NFC South.
You mean the BUcs? They'll sweep the BUcs?
What did I say?
You said the Carolina will sweep the Panthers. I just wanted to make sure I know which team.
Well, I was talking about the Florida Panthers because I think they're in town for a hockey game.
5 p.m. start time on the East Coast.
And we've seen this with a couple of teams this year. Carolina is in its last 8 games, win-loss, 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 win-loss. So that means they beat the BUcs, they lose to the Seahawks, and then they beat the BUcs again.
It makes sense to me.
Yeah, but you see, but that's the knock on Carolina is this lack of consistency. They beat the Rams, played their most complete game of the year, had a week off to get ready for a team that beat them back in week 10, had them, and they gave up 172 yards of offense in the fourth quarter alone.
Wow. That's a damning statistic.
Yes. And I will say this, you talked about the Saints and promise and with them and so on. Tyler Shuck looks like one of those kids who unflappable, at least early in his career. Just very, very calm, big arm. The Panthers do not want to see Chris Olave anytime soon. Either does J.C. Horn, who's been, burned by him twice. He got burned for a 62-yard score in Carolina, and he got burned with him on that slant. He dove to stop the ball and couldn't get the job done. So really disheartening loss for Carolina. But again, we have seen this before where they win a big game. I mean, they beat Green Bay, and I think the week after is when they lost at home to the Saints. So they can't seem to string them together. They're an improved football team, but they're an erratic football team.
Yeah, and J.C. Horn, correct me if I'm wrong, but he's become kind of one of the more top defensive backs, hasn't he, over the last couple of years?
He was a Pro Bowler last year. He has a career high 5 interceptions this season. I think I believe he had some injury issues this year. He's had some up and down with injuries throughout his career, but their defense couldn't be any worse than it was last year. It was one of the worst defensive showings in terms of yards in NFL history. They gave up 534 points, which is an NFL record. for the most in the season. All the Bengals are doing their best to try to break that.
I mean, when you dream, you achieve.
Yes. Bengals trying to earn their stripes, I guess. So,
boom.
Yeah.
So beyond the three first and second place matchups, we still have a game with a team that blew another double-digit lead, 21-point lead, the Patriots, and they're going to be playing the Ravens, who just shut out the Bengals. So was that the real Ravens defense that people have been waiting for all year, or was that just a taking advantage of an opponent that's on its last legs as they get ready for New England on Sunday?
I'm not sure what's going on in Cincinnati, but that's a team that relies on its offense. So when you see them get shut out, I think Burrow had 2 picks. They've had moments where they look like they were going to be the team that makes a little run at the title, and that's certainly not going to happen. And Burrow's been, for lack of a better word, Pat, very philosophical in his last couple of press conferences. And I don't know if he's trying to send messages, but I know they got a lot of money tied into 3 players.
That's why it was so shocking to me that they got shut out, because
yes,
in my mind, after he made those comments, I was like, he's probably going to have a great game this Sunday. And it was the complete opposite.
Complete opposite. With a chance, and you know this, they had a chance to sweep the Ravens, okay? And probably put the Ravens out of their misery, with 3 divisional losses because they already lost to Pittsburgh. They have to still go to Pittsburgh. But when you get, the first head-to-head is the first tiebreakers head-to-head. So if they would have swept them, when they beat Baltimore in Baltimore on Thanksgiving night and forced 5 turnovers, that was eye-opening. Both teams.
Yes, I agree.
And Cincinnati has done nothing with that since.
And that was at the time where they could have, at least made a run from the standpoint of they might actually win this division if Pittsburgh and Baltimore struggle. So they had an outside shot, and it wouldn't have surprised me.
And by the way, for people who don't know, the New England-Baltimore game was a flex game. It flexed into Sunday night. It was supposed to be Miami and Cincinnati. I for the life of me, I can't figure out why they wouldn't want Bengals-Dolphins.
Right. I can't either.
Yes.
I mean, if you took if you took both defenses and put them on one team, you'd have a great starting cast. Should New England fans be worried about what happened against Buffalo? I was surprised they lost once they were up 21-0. I wasn't surprised that Allen and the Bills came back. I kind of just because, having talked to you about this all year, we've had multiple games where teams have been down 20 points or more, come back and won, or at least come back and made it a game. So that wasn't really surprising. I guess what was surprising is just how badly New England's defense played in that second half. Is that just a case of the Bills and Josh Allen just being an MVP type player, or should the Patriots defense be concerned about what happened?
I think that was probably more about Allen in terms of knowing the opponent. And I know it's Mike Vrabel's first year as head coach and all that, but obviously they played earlier in the year. They did a bit. Now their run defense is still terrible. We saw, and that was why they fell behind. But the thing that struck me, Pat, was especially in the fourth quarter after Buffalo took the lead. Drake May and the Patriots offense was pretty lifeless late in the game. It was almost as if they couldn't believe what happened. We are, less than a game away. We're up 21-0.
Less than a half away.
Less than a half away from winning the AFC East.
Right.
Because they would have completed the sweep. Now they've got the Bills right there in the rearview mirror. Now they're still good. Buffalo's still going to need a little help here. Because that loss to Miami, the 30-13 loss, could be the thing that comes back and bites the Bills right in the buffalo wing. So
Right. Yeah, that game was, to me, that was similar to what the Jaguars did to the Chiefs. Although the Jaguars clearly are a much better team than just one upset victory like the Dolphins had. They are going to be in Denver, I believe.
yes, the
So
sneakiest game on the board.
right. So with Denver now, I mean, I thought that was a convincing victory over Green Bay from the standpoint that they came back again. They got their offense going later in the game again. But Bo Nix didn't have any young player miscues, I guess. He did a lot better job of, just taking what was in front of him. And then I think he had ended up with 4 touchdown passes. So I was encouraged by that if I'm a Broncos fan, but if at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if Jacksonville goes in there and, takes an early lead and actually is able to close the door on them. So, because they've got some talent. They definitely got some team speed. So where do you see this game going? Because I feel like it's going to be a lot of hard hits, if nothing else.
Yeah, Denver to me, watching them this year, they can look at times very bad on both sides of the ball. As good as that pass rush is, they will give up some big plays in the secondary. They're a great pass rushing defense. I wouldn't say they're a dominant defense. To me, Houston is closer to being a dominant defense than Denver is.
I would agree.
But at any one time, they seem to be able to turn it on offense, even though if they play a lousy game on offense. They seem to do the old rise to the occasion when they need it most. Because there are times where they look like, well, I mean, the Giants game was a great example where they looked like they were getting humiliated and somehow, pulled that game out, even with some really late game heroics. So they've learned how to win. 12, that's pretty impressive, you know. And
And their losses too, similar to Seattle, both of their
right.
losses were, I think by a combined 4 or 5 points. So both games they had a chance to win, which is funny to think
the
about
Colts
them
game
being
was
undefeated.
yeah, the Colts game was a little bizarre. Remember, it was like the uh, penalty on the field goal, and then the Colts kicked it again. And but give credit where credit's due. This is a better team than they were last year at this time. Denver was kind of fading a little down the stretch, and then they got whacked in Bob. They scored the first touchdown of the game, Bo Nix touchdown pass, and then gave up 31 unanswered points in the wild card game. They looked like a more confident team than they did a year ago, which is to be expected.
Right.
I mean, they have a Super Bowl winning head coach. Like I said, they have a defense that gets after people. They're going to be hosting a playoff game if they win the division, which they haven't done in 10 years. But this is a matchup that we could see in a couple of weeks again. If Jacksonville and Denver would both wind up making the playoffs.
Yeah, and I feel like if Jacksonville doesn't make the playoffs at this point, it's a huge disappointment because of being in first place right now.
Right.
And
Well,
that game
they
against
went
the
through,
Texans is going to.
right. They got off to a decent start. And then they really, I mean, that loss to the Rams in London, the 35-7 loss, they looked awful.
They looked like an expansion
It
Jaguars
wasn't
team.
even that the Rams looked that good. And the Rams were good that day. But Jacksonville kept shooting itself in the foot. That was that was a low point for them. And then all of a sudden they've regained themselves and playing good football at the right time.
So another quality matchup, Pittsburgh and Detroit. So Detroit's defense is just a lost cause. I feel like they are putting way too much pressure on the offense. Goff was nearly perfect. The offense was nearly perfect in the first half against the Rams, and it still the wheels came off in the second half with the defense. So I would also like to see the Lions run the ball more with Gibbs. I don't know. He seemed to be kind of misplaced on the sidelines a little too often. But
Right.
conversely, last night or Monday night, the Steelers, against a lesser opponent in Miami, but after the first half, it's still kind of close. And what did the Steelers do in the second half? They came out and they ran the ball hard and used that to set up the pass. So I feel like, as much as it might be crazy to say, 5 weeks ago, me would have said that it's crazy to think that the Steelers could go into Detroit and beat the Lions. But if the Lions defense is the same as it has been all week, or all year, I should say, Rodgers can have another great game, and he still can play no matter what anybody says. So I lean towards Pittsburgh in this one. What do you make of this matchup?
Yeah, I actually do too. I mean, we talked about a team getting hot late in the season. Is it Pittsburgh? Is it possible? I mean, is it? I mean, it seems unlikely, but um, New England got it handed to them last week. Denver is 12-2, but not really battle tested in terms of the playoffs. Like last year was their first playoff appearance in 9 years. Okay. Um, Jacksonville's been in the playoffs, out of the playoffs, up and down. Houston still bears watching, obviously.
To me, they're almost to me, they're the most battle tested team in the AFC.
Is Houston?
Besides and Buffalo, yeah.
Oh, Buffalo, yeah. Yeah, well, Buffalo now will be, if the Chiefs had the longest active playoff streak in the league. That's now come to an end.
Right.
So second was Buffalo, if they managed to make the playoffs. And they're at Cleveland this week. And it would be fascinating if New England loses to Baltimore and those two teams are tied. It's an old saying, and certainly was emphasized in Jurassic Park. Objects are closer than they appear. And is Buffalo sneaking up on New England? They've got the pedigree. And I'm not taking any away thing about it. To me, New England, for the most part, this year has been the most efficient team.
Yes, I would agree.
That doesn't mean they're the best team, but efficient. They haven't really had any, early on they lost to the Raiders and the Steelers in the first 3 weeks, and then ripped off 10 wins in a row in which they played pretty much clean football for the most part. So I don't know what the number is going to be, Pat, but we could be, until last week when Philly won and Dallas lost, I was thinking, could we see 8 new division champions this year?
I mean, it's not out of the question.
No. I mean, we know we're going to see one with Kansas City.
Right.
Because they've already been knocked out. I mean, obviously, Buffalo's still alive. Houston's still alive. Baltimore's still alive. Philly, with Dallas losing at home to Minnesota, that was but Detroit's backed itself into a corner. Tampa Bay can certainly win it again. The Rams can certainly win it again. Boy, the NFC West already has 3 10-win teams.
Yes.
And I'm not going to get too excited about that, considering last year the NFC North had a 15-win team, a 14-win team, and an 11-win team, who, by the way, all lost their first playoff game.
Well, yeah, and one of those teams is the Vikings. You mentioned that Sunday game where they defeated the Cowboys. Not that they're going playoff bound, but I think the Vikings right now are a team that is going to upset some people the last 3 weeks. Mainly because
I agree with that.
Their offensive line is healthy. I think Sunday was the first time it was healthy all year. And, I mean, McCarthy, for whether you like him or not, that guy is I think this will be his 9th start this coming weekend. So, from an experience standpoint, you can tell that he's getting closer and closer with those receivers. And when one of your receivers is arguably the greatest in the game, or one of the 3 or 4 greatest, I think they're going to be a force these next 3 weeks. Just
Yeah, I
wanted to throw that
believe
out
they
there.
have.
I was shocked that they were 5.5-point underdogs against Dallas, because it's like even if Dallas wins games at home, they're going to overtime, or they're
Right.
winning by 3
And giving up points.
and giving up
And giving up
points.
points. So yeah, I don't have the schedule in front of me. I should just know this though. I think there's a rematch with the Lions for the Vikings, who the Vikings already beat the Lions in Detroit.
Right.
And then think they have a rematch with the Packers as well. So, maybe sometimes you don't win the division, but sometimes you decide who wins the division.
Which the Falcons tried to do last week with
Yes.
their upset of the Bucks. So you mentioned the 49ers also. So they go for their 11th win on Monday night in Indianapolis. Phillip Rivers will be playing that game as well. I am shocked to say this, but I think that the 49ers, with all the injuries they had, very well could be win 12 games this year. And obviously, I still don't think they'll win their division, which is unfortunate, but still a hell of a job by the whole team, considering everything that was going on the first 8 weeks of the season.
Right. Well, if somehow they manage to get in a three-way tie with the Rams and the Seahawks, at this moment, by the way, the Niners have the best record in the division. They beat the Rams at SoFi. They beat the Seahawks at Seattle. They swept the Cardinals. They're 4-1 in the division. That's much better than the Seahawks and the Rams. So if they can somehow, get some breaks here, and I'm sure they're in some way they're rooting for Seattle to beat the Rams, because they get another crack at Seattle at San Francisco the final week of the season. So we shall see. I mean, again, we saw this last year with the NFC North and those dominant teams, and then in the blink of an eye, they were all gone. It's almost they're so good that they're targets on their backs. And so, I mean, remember Detroit
And
lost at
also
home
just maybe just attrition also from
right.
playing in that division against the same teams that are just as good.
Right. Yeah. Well, I'm a big believer in that. I'll date myself, during the 70s and so on, when the Raiders were a consistent winner of the AFC West in the 70s. But back then, the AFC West wasn't really that good. It was them and the other three teams. And then Denver kind of emerged in the mid to late 70s, with the Orange Crush and all that. And it became a different story. But then when the Raiders got to the playoffs many years, they'd reached the AFC. Remember, the playoffs were different. There were 3 division winners and 1 wild card. So there was no wild card round. You went right to the divisional round and then the championship round.
Right.
And the Raiders, more times than not, were in the AFC championship game throughout the 70s, but they only reached 1 Super Bowl. That's because I think, there was a year in which the Raiders lost to the Steelers in 1975, 50 years ago. Jeez. And think about how strong this division was. Now it's 14 games, 4 teams, the AFC Central. Pittsburgh was 12-2, lost to the Bills and lost to the Rams, in which they sat everybody at the end of the season. The Bengals were 11-3, made the playoffs, lost twice to the Steelers and once to the Browns. The Oilers were 10-4 and missed the playoffs, Pat. Lost twice to the Steelers, lost twice to the Bengals. So you want to talk about be battle tested. And the Steelers were already a Super Bowl champion. They wound up repeating that year. But, when you're not pressed during the regular season, it can certainly come back, which is why I always laugh at the same people who will say, oh, they can be the number 1 seed. Look at that schedule. And then 25 minutes later say, well, who they played?
Right.
Okay. Can you translate that thought for me, please? So
They probably think a lot about if the season ended today as well.
Yes, they did. And for some of them, it has.
So what game out of all of these that we've gone through, or even if we haven't gone through, like just from a pure watch perspective, I guess Thursday is probably your go-to game.
Yeah, because of the way the first one went. Listen, the Rams are going to put points on the board. Very few exceptions here. When they beat the Ravens in Baltimore 17-3. Okay. They're giving you 20, 25 points a game. Seattle's capable of that as well. And I think the thing I'm watching in that game is, do we see Matthew Stafford, who's had a magnificent year? Does he have another one of those games where he is turning over the ball 3 times like he did at Carolina? And 2 picks, one of them a pick six, a strip sack fumble by Derek Brown late in the game, and the Rams never got the ball back and lost 31-28. Again, you and I have talked about the Rams defense is kind of more built to rush the passer than necessarily stop the run. But that was definitely the case last year when Saquon Barkley went for 2 double C notes
Right.
in the regular season and the playoffs. And Carolina ran the ball 40 times against them that game. I could see Walker and Charbonneau and Clint Kubiak doing some. And Clint Kubiak, because of a brief stint with the 49ers, certainly knows the Rams and McVay. There's no question about that. So a loss by Seattle in this game, I think would be, and I'm not in the locker room, I think it would be a little mentally devastating for them, because last year they had the same record as the Rams, and they lost out on the dreaded strength of victory tiebreaker. And they wound up not making the playoffs at all, even though they won 10 games. They've kind of built up for this moment. And the one thing about the Seahawks that has struck me all year is after they've lost, and they've lost 3 games by 9 points total.
Right.
They've come out guns a-blazing for the next 3 or 4 weeks. So they've really responded after a loss. But to get swept by the Rams and already lose to the 49ers at home earlier in this year, probably feel like they're treading water a little.
Yeah, I would agree with that, especially knowing that they don't beat the Rams when Stafford's actually lined up under center for them as well.
Yeah, it's bizarre little stat. And one year they swept the Rams because Stafford missed like nearly the entire year that year. And last year they beat the Rams in the final game of the season, but Stafford sat out.
Right.
So, and he doesn't put up these mind-boggling numbers. It's just who he is and the calm and experience that he brings to the table in those games.
So what I'll be looking for in that game will be if Sean McVay stays with the run. I feel like I've told you this last week, but there's games where he falls in love with the pass when the run is working, and I feel like this game, especially, it's as cliche and old man football as it sounds. Whoever is going to control time of possession without turning it over,
right?
That's the winner. So we'll see if he can stay with the run if he gets it going, and also, like you, I think you've said this before, it's not always about how many yards, it's about the carries.
Yes.
And it's about the belief of, like, can you get the play action working? Because, and that's a big part of the Rams offense too. So I'll be looking at that. And then I do feel like those Seattle's got the edge in special teams and in defense. So having said all that, I'm going to pile on what you said too. If they lose, it's going to be more than just a loss, I feel like. It'll be a little bit more of a mental
slap
hurdle
in the face.
Yes, which doesn't mean that they can't overcome that in the postseason if they were to meet again. But for the short term, probably not a good vibe in the locker room.
Well, they haven't won the division since 2020. That was the last time Seattle won the division. And ironically enough, they hosted the Rams in the playoffs and got beat.
Who was the quarterback then? Was that Geno Smith and Pete Carroll still? 2020?
Was not. No, that was Russell Wilson.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Geno came along. Geno's 3 years, I think, were 2022, 23, and 24.
Okay.
So
what?
And that was pre-Matthew Stafford, 2020. He didn't get there until 2021. They beat the Seahawks and then lost at Lambeau.
The Geno and Pete, by the way, over in Las Vegas with the Raiders not having a great season, they got shut out. We'll end on this note. Is it possible that they get shut out a second week in a row? Because they're going to be playing that Houston Texans defense this weekend.
I could definitely see that. Last year we had 2 shutouts the entire season in the league. We had 2 last weekend. And we have 7 so far this year.
Wow.
So, and when you have teams and by the way, the Raiders have already been shut out twice this year. They got shut out at Kansas City earlier in the season.
That's right.
So, it's not the 1976 Buccaneers.
Could they go for 3
Here's
goose
one
eggs?
for you. Tampa Bay played 26 games in their first 2 years of existence and were shut out 11 times.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
And that's the what's the legendary quote from the head coach?
They asked him about his team's execution, and he said, "I'd favor it." So good. So good.
That's the Pro Football Guru, Russell Baxter. Thanks for watching the Pat Imig Sports Network, powered by Imig.ai. For exclusive sports content and clips you can't find anywhere else, follow along on social media at Get Pissin'.
Every single night, from the tip off to the touchdown, I break it down. Sports talk, royalty, I wear the crown. Dynasties rise, legacies never fall. Every win got a story, I tell it all. Last minute buzzer beaters, ice in the vein. Post game speeches and champagne rain. From the World Cup heat to the Super Bowl lights, calling plays in the zone. Open up your eyes, Big Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Talking MVPs, yeah, I see the vision. Grinding for the chip, this is more than a mission. Trade talks, headlines, locker room vibes. Breaking news quicker than a 40-yard time guide. Eyes on the court, hard in the ring. Every athlete's journey, I let that sing. Olympic gold to college ball pride. If it's clutch, I got it covered worldwide. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Lights on, game on, no cap when the game's strong. Underdogs to the Hall of Fame, every win got a name. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night. Pat Imig Sports Network, dropping value like clockwork. If you really want insight, get it right. Watch the videos every single night.